I'm Professor Tony Diaz, el Librotraficante. This is Nuestra Palabra, Latinos having their say. I am so excited to welcome back to her home, La Mera Mera, Icess Fernandez Rojas, as we celebrate her book, The Opposite of Breathing is Cement. Welcome back home.
Gracias. It's good to be home.
Congratulations for all your success. I want the folks to know all about how you got here, where you're from, but I also want them to know that we're so proud that you made your literary debut on the Nuestra Palabra stage and that you're giving back so much to the community, to the art world. So tell us, how did you get here?
I got here through Nuestra Palabra. I couldn't have gotten here without Nuestra Palabra. Let's just put it out there. I got here through wearing a very bad prom dress at the age of 19 with tennis shoes. And really, people have asked me in the past, like, what do you remember of your first performance on the stage? And I remember starting it and getting off the stage.
Wow.
Anything in the middle is not in my head. I remember tennis shoes, and I remember lifting the skirt and showing the tennis shoes and people laughing, and then it's black. Done. So I got there through Nuestra. I was a journalist for a long time. An insanely long time, 12 years, and got my MFA. We were just talking about that. Got my MFA. Goddard College no longer exists, but always in my heart.
Wow.
And that's a whole other conversation.
Other show, yeah.
It's another show.
It's there.
But it's there. And then, decided to go into education after leaving journalism. And then an interesting thing happened. So Decolonized Denise was doing a show. Shout out. Was doing a show, The Lilt. And it was a 1-hour show with one poet live on the radio. Could read whatever. And she chose me as for the first season of that. So I was in the first season. Lupe Mendez was in the first season. And so I was like, all right, what am I going to do for mine, right? She called me. I was literally on the way to Austin. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm going to do something. And I know every time I read, people always ask me for a book. And I'm like, I ain't got no book, man. I ain't got no book. So I'm like, I'm going to do a chapbook. And so it's interesting, right? One of my former students ended up being a publisher. And I'm like, hey, publish my chapbook. He's like, bet, let's do it. I'm like, great. I started pulling poems, and I'm like, see, what had happened was chapbooks are short and this is not. And he was like, well, let's just publish the book.
Oh, nice.
And he's like, you'll be our first poet. And I'm like,
Nice.
all right. And so here I am.
Love it. Here we are. And people can take this home. We hope that they'll go to nuestrapalabra.org and pick up a signed copy there. This is a wonderful addition to their family library or underground library, whatever they have to do. Mm-hmm. But I do love that you share that it was a blur that first time on stage, because I think maybe new writers think that that's not magic, or think that's traumatizing. And also, you as a professor have done so much as well. We're going to celebrate the book, which people would expect, but I also want them to know that you're a brilliant professor, but you've also been teaching mixed market studies, and you created an amazing directory. Mm-hmm. How does that all fit into being a creative writer, also someone that's a community activist?
Well, I think being an educator and being an activist go hand in hand. You can't really separate one for the other, because what does an educator do but advocate for their students? End of, period. So you are an activist just because you breathe in education, right? If you don't do that, perhaps you should probably not be an educator. That there are other things to do. But yeah, you are an activist by default. And so when it's time to kind of pick stories for what I'm teaching in my class, right? I'm always thinking, okay, well, that writer in that anthology probably got paid $500 to run that once. And this book publisher is getting paid times 10, times 20, times 30, times 300, times however many in this book. And they got paid once versus the publisher gets paid many, many times. And then the student pays, and that that piece is probably in a literary magazine somewhere for free online. And so I'm just like, well, OER is a thing. Right. Open educational resources for those who are not in the lingo. And so it's like, why would I put money into a publisher who's making money from a writer who's very happy to be studied in a class, but only gets paid once, versus I'm creating literally your fan base and you get paid more times.
And giving back to the community.
And giving back to the community, and like building readers, and having students see themselves in modern literature.
And I would argue that is action.
Right.
So when I use the word activist, I do mean act, and you're making it clear that you're putting time and energy, not just into the curriculum, but how it touches on other facets, but really also humanizing your students at the same time.
Absolutely, because how are they supposed to understand the world if they think that people don't write about the world from their perspective, from the backgrounds that they have grown up in? If they don't see abuela, if they don't see tia, if they don't see auntie, if they don't see, if they don't see their family members, they don't see themselves, then what is the value of literature? What did we just do?
And you're updating the trope I would hear when I was a kid, which is write about what you translated for the modern era, and you continue to do so. So we wish you continued success.
Thank you.
Thank you for all that you do, and we hope that folks will make this a part of their library. You can go to nuestrapalabra.org, visit the store, and you can get your hands on a signed copy of The Opposite of Breathing is Cement by our dear friend Icess Fernandez Rojas. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
I'm Professor Tony Diaz, a Librotraficante, founder and director of Nuestra Palabra, Latinos Having Their Say, a verified Houston cultural treasure. In the past, you had to attend an NP event in person to experience it, and once it was over, the memories and knowledge remained, but that moment passed. The new Nuestra Palabra website keeps our cultural party going 24/7, taking our work to the next level. Nuestrapalabra.org carries videos previewing poets, writers, and visual artists who will present in person, as well as copies of their work. Additionally, our archive of videos reminds you of the great experiences you had with your favorite literary legends and rising stars, and also they serve as teaching tools, writing lessons, and inspiration for folks who want to know more about their culture, their history, or the craft of writing their own works. We are so proud that nuestrapalabra.org informs the community about our history, our present, and our future. I'm Professor Tony Diaz, a Librotraficante. This is Nuestra Palabra, Latinos Having Their Say. We are celebrating the book, The Opposite of Breathing is Cement, by La Mera Mera Icess Fernandez Rojas. And in this segment, we call it Guts, so you can tell us about the essentials of the book. So tell us about the little different nuances and what this book is made up of.
Okay. This is great because no one ever asked that question. So let's talk about kind of the big topics in this one. So we have everything from social justice to mental health. Does it all make sense? Yes, it all makes sense together. Ironically enough, I don't know how it happened, but it did. Shout out to my editor who decided what order these go into, because I tried to do it myself. And Tony, that was a moment.
Wow.
It was a moment. You know what the moment said? This is not what you do.
But now you've got about 50 pieces in here, right?
Right.
So you had to first eliminate other works.
Right.
So that's draining, exhausting.
Right.
Did you have to create new works?
Actually do it. There's actually a couple of poems here that were created that I wrote and got in. I think they got in within a week of publishing. It was very, very, very quick. And I said, I want this in here. And so a couple of things had happened, one of which is like I had a sorority sister who lost the man that they were going to marry. Very, very sudden. And I wrote this poem and I'm just like, this fits with everything. Let's put it in there. And I put that in there for her. So she knows that that poem is hers. And so Love Ghost is another one that came in really late. They were editing the book by the time I finished the book. They were already editing. And so I like popped that in there and I'm like, do your thing. Why not? And so we can do whatever we want because everything's made up. So that's what we did. I think another thing that I really like is this like, one poem that did not get in there because it wasn't done in time was a third Cuban poem. So I have a Cuban trilogy. I did not know I could do that, but I did, and I can do whatever I want because everything's made up, right? That's the thing. That's what the kids are saying. And so I have 3 poems dealing with being Cuban, daughter of an exile, still having family on the island, and then what that all means in the grander scheme of things. And so the last poem I have that was the Cuban poem was actually about Celia Cruz, which was really cool, but it just didn't make it in time. It was the deadline. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think one of my favorite pieces in here is actually the first one, Ballas Life, an ode to Black Boy Joy before the school bell. A lot of people ask me to read it. I like it because it looks really cool on the page. So if you happen to be an educator and happen to be teaching form, this is what you use to teach form because it mimics the bounce of a ball. So I think it's kind of cool.
That's very cool. And also they can talk about how you're combining poetry and prose. So you did that at the outset, or the pieces sort of dictated that as you?
I wanted it to be both. I wanted to be poetry and prose because I am trained in prose, right? My MFA is in fiction, right? But I grew up a poet. It took me a long time to realize that. Shout out to Lupe Mendez, who kept telling me that and me not believing him. But I grew up as a poet, but I trained as a fiction writer. And so I wanted the prose to be there because the prose, I think, sets off the bigger themes of the work a little bit better, or adds to the themes. It's also little respites for folks, right? You know, you read poem after poem after poem. Okay, well, here's a longer piece. Poem, 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 longer piece. So it kind of gives people a moment to like ground themselves a bit before they continue on.
And I imagine, I don't know how your muses work, but is it a different task to write poem, prose, or fiction and journalism?
Yeah, you know what? I go back and forth about all that. I had a really great mentor who said, you know, how you write journalism and how you write fiction, they're really 2 different languages, right? How you speak, it's a code switch. How you speak English in your class is different how you speak English at home, right? How you speak Spanish to your mom is different than how you speak Spanish professionally, right? And so it's like, she made me realize that though it's the same language, it's a code switch. And so similar elements, different approaches. And it's the same, I think, with fiction and poetry and prose nonfiction and whether you're doing the essay or you're doing a memoir, it's all the same language, different languages, right? And different tools in your toolbox. What's the story? Okay, can I hit that story with a couple of stanzas, or do I need to do a longer form? I don't know. Let's write it and figure it out, which is usually my take.
Well, what I love is for folks that want to do the math, because you've got code switching in there, but that's already been done. So now you've got the deeper level of code switching in one language. So quadruple switching, we'll call it, invented by Icess Fernandez Rojas.
Yes.
Thank you so much for all you do. And we're looking forward for everybody getting their copy of The Opposite of Breathing is Cement. They can visit nuestrapalabra.org. Visit our store to get signed copies to give to friends or to give to community libraries or teachers. And want to remind you that every purchase you make at our website helps a Latino publisher, a Latino writer, or helps us give back to the community. Thanks for all you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm Professor Tony Diaz, a Librotraficante, founder and director of Nuestra Palabra, Latinos Having Their Say, a verified Houston cultural treasure. I want to thank all of our partners who've helped us get to where we are. Some of those include BIPOC Arts Network and Fund, the Brown Foundation, the City of Houston to the Arts Alliance of Houston, the law offices of Carolina Ortuzar Diaz P. LLC, Que Onda Magazine, and the entire team of Nuestra Palabra and our volunteers, and you, our supporters. We do it all for you. Thank you. I'm Professor Tony Diaz, a Librotraficante. This is Nuestra Palabra, Latinos Having Their Say. We are chatting with the brilliant Icess Fernandez Rojas, celebrating her book, The Opposite of Breathing is Cement. This section is called Live. Would you kindly read some excerpts for us?
I would love to. I'm going to read part one of the prose pieces. It's called When Maria Came to Visit. This is actually in the voice of a 7-year-old girl. So I will sound like a 7-year-old girl. It's a letter to Santa. Dear Santa, my name is Soledad Gonzalez, and I'm 7 years old. I live in Puerto Rico, but I think you know this because you know everything, right? I'm writing this letter because I just want one thing for Christmas. I want to know if you are real. My brother Marcos said you don't exist, but he's a stupid head. I think you're real because my best friend Lola asked for a doll one year, and she got it, and she said that you brought it to her. That doll was real nice and has nice hair and looked like a real baby. It cried, and she would feed it from a plastic bottle, and sometimes when she would let me hold it, it smelled like strawberries. I always wanted a doll like that, but you never brought it to me. You always got me clothes and socks. Mommy said it's because you know I needed them. But I still asked for a new doll because I wanted something different. But you didn't bring me that. Was I bad? I tried to be good this year. Really, really good. So that way I could get something other than new underwear, which Mommy said I needed to. But maybe I wasn't as good as you wanted me to be. Maybe my whole family was mean because the ocean got really angry and took our house. Bobby said it was Maria, but I know her, and she would never do that. She's nice. You got her a doll too, though. In September, we saw the ocean skip over the seawall and fall from the sky. The water was angry and dropped hard on our roof. It sounded like a million fists hitting the ceiling. Mama was scared, and so was I. But Papi, he said it was going to be okay. He said Puerto Rico was here forever and will always be here. We are made of tough stuff, mija, he said. Puerto Rico hoy, mañana y siempre. I didn't know what he meant, but that night we all slept in one room, just in case Maria wanted to visit. Outside the window, the wind pushed the trees over like bullies. It howled at them and made them so scared they bended in half. The guayaba tree, the one I learned to climb as soon as I could walk, snapped in two. It was so scared. That's when we all jumped. The crack sank into us. Marcos and I ran to the window and saw it. The insides, now on the outside. Tree guts pounded by hard, mad rain. I didn't get scared until that moment. Where would I go now when I wanted to hide? Where would we sit during the summer? That tree was big and strong and didn't hurt anyone. My eyes stung with hot tears. Papi came and carried me to my room. In the quiet, I could hear screaming of hurt coming from my tree. The next day, the angry water came to visit and brought its friends. It filled our house, and we ran through water away from it, but it was everywhere. Marcos took my hand and walked me through. The angry water wrapped itself around me and stuck to me like glue. It wanted to carry me away. I cried, but it wouldn't let me go. That's when Papi carried me on his shoulders, and I could see the world. My neighborhood was a river, and that river carried away the world. In the water, I saw pieces of wood, clothes, and by Lola's house, I saw her doll. The doll was stringy and dark. The dirty skin looks more like mud. Lola's doll floated past us, and we walked away from our home. The water claimed Christmas. Now we are back in our home, but it is not the same. For a long time, there was no water to drink, no food to eat. I was hungry every day. We felt forgotten. Surely, Mommy said, that the world knows that we are here and that we need their help. She said this every day, and every day the promise was broken. And so her heart was broken. Marcos and Papi carried pieces of our house outside. Everyone else did the same, so the neighborhood looked more broken than whole. When food and water finally came, the lines were long and the help was short. Papi said that Puerto Rico has never felt like a prison until now. So Santa, do you exist? If you do, I want to make a request. Please find us a new home, a place where people are nice, a place where, if people need help, it comes without delay, a place where it doesn't feel like a prison or a place where my mommy's heart doesn't break, a place to go, a country that loves us as if we were their own.
Thank you. That's touching. And that's the prose side.
Yeah?
Would you share a poem?
I would love to. All right. So this one is a favorite. It's called, if I can get to it, Ball is Life, an ode to Blackboard joy before the school bell. This is for the jump shots, the epic dunks, the alley-oops happening when most slurp morning coffee with crusty eyes. By sunrise, you have already won the championship twice at the buzzer with the crowd cheering your name before the school bell rings. This is for that free throw line at the crack in the almost middle of the crooked driveway where you have made your space, where you hold court and take cautious care before shooting your shot so that the ball doesn't hit your mom's black Ford Mustang before work. This here is for those LeBron-worthy legend makers spinning around and throwing magic in each bank shot as backpacks stuffed with last night's homework cheer from the sidelines. Let's give an ode to the joy before a joyless day, where no one can tell you nothing, where you aren't boy but young prince, where you aren't discipline problem but half-time solution, where your disruptive influence only influences how many points you score before the bus rolls up to take you to school, before first period, before having to tuck away your glory for your game face, surviving suicide drills and dodging rogue passes from the other team. A prayer for the moments before the sun comes up, and that you are the brightest star for miles. We can see you through our collective eyelids. Everything is possible before. You need more air, young sir, in your jump shot under your wings to fly away from what is coming, like Jordan in his day. More air in your lungs, double in reserve, so that the breath never leaves you, even if they step on your neck.
Thank you so much. We've had the pleasure of hearing excerpts from The Opposite of Breathing is Cement with Icess Fernandez Rojas. Thank you so much, and we hope that folks tuning in will take advantage of this opportunity to visit nuestrapalabra.org and pick up their own signed copy for their family library, community library, or underground library. Thank you so much for all you do and for representing us.
Thank you so much for having me home.
Thank you. We'll see you for the next book.
Okay.